There is a curious law woven into the very fabric of existence, a law so ancient, so relentless, that no soul escapes its reach. You see, the world believes in cause and effect, but those who walk with God understand something deeper. Divine justice hidden in plain sight. For every dagger of betrayal, for every whisper meant to tarnish your name, for every plot designed to crush your spirit, there is an unseen hand at work, and that hand belongs to God. Think for a moment about the cruelty you endured, not accidental missteps, but carefully crafted schemes. Words sharpened like knives, smiles masking deceit, actions designed to see you crumble, break, perhaps even disappear from your purpose. They did not stumble into hurting you, they chose it. They carried out their plans, believing your fall would elevate their pride, their image, their advantage. But here's the mystery they forgot. God has never been mocked. The very pain they orchestrated for you has become their own undoing. You stood silent, perhaps shattered while they celebrated. But the divine record was never blank. Every tear you shed was counted, every sleepless night observed, every ache within your chest seen. And while you thought God was silent, He was orchestrating a far greater response than revenge. He was letting them become entangled in their own cruelty. The world has long forgotten this. Evil recoils upon the one who unleashes it. The trap they set for your soul became the pit they themselves tumbled into. The poison they stirred for your spirit, it rests bitterly upon their own lips now. The lies they uttered about your character, those words echo back upon their reputation like a curse sown by their own hands. It is not superstition, it is divine mathematics. The harvest of one's deeds is inevitable, and those who sow harm, who rejoice in your pain, who parade your suffering as their triumph, will sooner or later drink from the same bitter cup they poured so freely for you. I wonder if you've noticed this unfolding already. The relationships they broke to isolate you, now they stand isolated. The peace they robbed from your heart, they chase sleep and cannot find it. The blessings they tried to block in your life, have you seen how their own opportunities have withered? It is not coincidence, it is God, reminding the world that justice often walks in silence before it roars. You must understand, this was never about you being weak or broken or undeserving. No, it was your purity, the very essence of your loyalty, your heart, your unwillingness to retaliate, that made you their target. Darkness detests innocence, pride despises humility, deceit loathes truth. They tried to hurt you because your existence challenged their corruption. But here's the marvel of divine justice. You didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to expose their betrayal. God saw everything. And because He saw, the very storm they built for you is now the storm unraveling them. Their own bitterness, their own lies, their own schemes have become their undoing. You may not witness every detail, but trust me, behind the scenes, the same energy they unleashed upon your life has returned home to them, multiplied. This is why you must stay silent when vindication begins. It is not your role to gloat. It is not your task to parade their downfall. Their suffering is not your victory. It is the inevitable outcome of their choices. Your victory is peace. Your victory is knowing you never had to lower yourself to their level, and still God fought for you. So let this truth rest within your heart today. They did it to hurt you, but in doing so, they hurt themselves. Such is the quiet, unstoppable justice of God. And the story is not over. Your restoration has only begun. Their intentions were deliberate, but God saw it all. There's something profoundly unsettling about realizing someone intentionally set out to hurt you. It's not a misunderstanding. It's not a momentary lapse of judgment. It's a calculated act, crafted with precision, hidden beneath smiles, carried out with the quiet cruelty of the human heart. And yet, in the midst of that betrayal, in the echo of that pain, lies the most comforting truth. God saw it all. It's easy to feel invisible when you're being targeted in silence. The whispers behind your back, the schemes woven in the shadows, the subtle manipulations no one else seems to notice. They can make you feel as though your suffering floats unseen through the world. But that is a lie. The heavens were not asleep when they chose to harm you. The throne of God was not empty. His eyes never drifted away from your life. You see, the world often forgets that God is not merely a distant force governing the universe. He is intimately present in the quiet corners of your pain. Every insult they uttered, He heard. Every plan they devised behind closed doors, He witnessed. Every moment they celebrated your sorrow, thinking they had succeeded, He marked down with divine precision. He acquiesced to a spiritual pain that divine precision. There's a terrifying arrogance that takes hold of those who believe they can harm others without consequence. It grows in the soil of pride and selfish ambition. They convince themselves that their position, their influence, or their clever words can shield them from accountability. But history, both earthly and eternal, teaches otherwise. Scripture whispers relentlessly that God is a God of justice, and though His timing may confound us, His sight never fails. Perhaps you questioned God in your suffering. Perhaps you wondered, why is this happening? Why am I left defenseless while they seem victorious? But the answer is simple. God's delay is never His absence. His silence is not forgetfulness. His patience is not permission for evil to reign. No scheme goes unseen. No betrayal escapes His awareness. And while they plotted to hurt you, heaven recorded every detail. While they cloaked their intentions behind false kindness, the spiritual realm laid bare their hearts. Even when they thought they could rewrite the narrative, painting themselves as noble, convincing others you were the problem, God saw the truth unfiltered, untouched, and undeniable. This is why you can rest even when the wounds feel fresh. Their intentions, as deliberate as they were, have not slipped into the shadows unseen. The one who rules over time and eternity has already taken note. And justice, though it often walks slowly, never forgets its destination. They did it to hurt you, but they could not hide from the eyes of God. 2. The pain they sent out returned to their own doorstep. There's a peculiar law built into creation, an invisible thread that weaves through every human action, binding cause to consequence like roots to the earth. It's this law that guarantees no pain inflicted on others can roam the world unchecked. The pain they designed for you, the sorrow they orchestrated in secret, has found its way back to their own doorstep. It often begins subtly. At first they parade their success. They stand tall, satisfied, watching you wrestle with the aftermath of their cruelty. They believe they've won, that your tears, your isolation, your fractured spirit are proof of their power. But they've forgotten the ancient principle: what you send into the world circles back, often quietly, but always completely. They thought they could hurt you and walk away clean, but pain has a strange memory. It remembers its maker, and though it may take time, it always finds its way home. The chaos they unleashed, the heartbreak they designed, the whispers they spread, they return not as whispers, but as storms upon their own life. You may not always witness it. Sometimes God shields your eyes, protecting your heart from becoming consumed with vengeance. But rest assured, the harvest of pain cannot be avoided. The very relationships they damaged to isolate you, now their own relationships fracture. The peace they robbed from your soul, their nights grow sleepless, their hearts restless. It isn't superstition, it's spiritual order. The world mocks the idea of karma or divine justice, yet the pattern repeats through generations. Those who wound the innocent inherit wounds of their own. Those who sabotage others sabotage their own peace. Those who speak destruction over others find their own lives unraveling. They hurt you thinking pain was a tool to build their pride, but they discovered pain is a boomerang. It always returns to its sender. Their reputation now bears the scars of their deception. Their conscience, though silenced in public, screams in the quiet of their solitude. The very weight they placed upon your shoulders has settled upon theirs, heavier, colder, and unavoidable. So let them stand with the consequences of their choices. They did it to hurt you. But pain never forgets its creator. And now, it lives with them. Your innocence was their true target. There's something profoundly threatening about innocence. To those who live with selfish motives, deceitful hearts, and hidden agendas, purity becomes a mirror that exposes their corruption, their envy, their unresolved darkness. They didn't hurt you simply because you were weak or because you made a mistake. They targeted you because your goodness was unbearable for them to stand beside. It was your loyalty they could not digest. It was your consistency, your trust, your open heart that disturbed their spirit. You represented what they had lost, what they had buried under layers of pride and manipulation. Every time you offered kindness, it exposed the bitterness that ruled their heart. Every time you chose honesty, it marked their carefully built tower of lies. Your patience became a silent accusation against their rush to destroy. They saw you as a threat, not because you attacked them, but because you quietly refused to adopt their ways. You became a living reminder that a different path exists, a path where love is sincere, where loyalty is not a currency to be traded, where people can stand in truth without twisting it for advantage. And that made you dangerous in their eyes. You never intended to become their enemy. You never wanted to fight. But your unwillingness to join their games made them feel smaller, less powerful, less in control. They needed to crush you, to silence the uncomfortable voice inside themselves, a voice that whispered, "Look, this is what real goodness looks like." And instead of rising to meet that standard, they chose the easier path, to break the mirror. They wanted to see you fall, not just because they disliked you, but because your existence pricked their conscience. Your faithfulness reminded them of their betrayal. Your patience revealed their restlessness. Your forgiveness uncovered their cruelty. You didn't have to say a word. You didn't need to fight back. Your life alone was the loudest message they could not bear. Sometimes people don't hurt you because you deserve it. They hurt you because you shine too brightly in rooms they've long kept dark. Your humility offends their arrogance. Your sincerity disrupts their performance. Your heart unsettles their schemes. You were a silent disturbance to their comfort, so they chose to harm you, thinking it would free them from the burden of facing themselves. But what they didn't understand is that destroying you would never silence the echo of their own emptiness. The more they tried to extinguish your light, the more it exposed the cracks in their own soul. They didn't need to destroy you. They needed to confront themselves. But it's easier to hurt the pure-hearted than to heal a corrupt heart. so they chose to turn their weapons against you. Yet the story never bends in their favor for long, because what they attacked wasn't just you. It was the part of you that reflected something sacred. Innocence has a strange way of lingering, even when bruised, even when rejected, even when pushed to the margins. It does not die. It stands waiting, quietly reminding the world that purity cannot be erased by cruelty. And now they live with the memory of what they tried to destroy. They live with the guilt of what they could not fully silence. Your innocence was their true target, but it has outlived their weapons. God delayed his response to prepare a greater justice. There's a peculiar pain in waiting, waiting for answers, waiting for rescue, waiting for justice. It can feel as though the heavens have turned their face away, as though your suffering is a faint echo lost in the vast chambers of eternity. You wonder, does God see? Does he hear? Does he care? And when the wicked seem to prosper, when the ones who hurt you walk freely without consequence, the silence feels even louder. But this is where most souls misunderstand the nature of God's justice. It is not rushed. It is not reactive like the fury of men. It is deliberate, carefully prepared, and infinitely timed. You see, when God delays, he does not forget. When God waits, he does not abandon. His delay is not an oversight. It is part of the unfolding design of a justice that is complete, not hasty. If he had acted immediately, perhaps you would have clapped your hands in satisfaction. But God's justice is not crafted for your temporary relief. It is shaped for eternal lessons, undeniable outcomes, and deeper transformations. His delay often allows the full truth to ripen, for hidden motives to surface, for masks to slip, for the corruption of those who harmed you to fully reveal itself. In his silence, God allows their pride to grow, their arrogance to swell, their hearts to convince themselves they have escaped all consequence. And it is in that false security that the greatest fall is prepared. Those who thought they triumphed over you, those who walked away smiling while you wept, they have mistaken the quiet for approval. They misread the patience of God as the absence of God. But what they do not see is the steady hand of divine justice building something far greater in the background. God waits because he wants the evidence of their cruelty to stand unquestioned. He waits because he wants them to write their own judgment with their continued actions. He waits because sometimes the longer the rope, the more thoroughly they entangle themselves in it. God's delay also serves you. In the waiting, he strengthens you. In the silence, he teaches you to trust beyond what your eyes can see. He refines your character, anchors your spirit, and prepares your heart for restoration that isn't just sweet, it's undeniable. You were not left alone in your suffering. You were being prepared. There are those who mock the patience of God. They think their actions are too small to matter in the grand scheme. They think their betrayal will dissolve into time unnoticed. They think they can outrun consequence. But there is a weight to every action. There is a seed planted with every betrayal, and in the appointed season the harvest arrives. Not when they expect, not when you demand, but when the story is ready to reveal its full lesson. God's justice is not driven by your timeline, it is driven by his perfect design. And while you waited in silence, while you sat in the ache of unanswered prayers, heaven was working. God's response was never forgotten, it was simply being prepared to arrive in a way no one could deny. They are haunted by the same hurt they tried to give you. It is one of life's quiet, unseen laws. The pain people release into the world never disappears. It travels, circles, and eventually finds its way back to its source. They wanted to hurt you. They plotted your downfall. They delighted in your brokenness, and they expected your suffering to be the final chapter. But pain is not obedient to human commands. It does not always settle where intended, and now that very hurt has become their constant shadow. At first, it may have seemed like they were untouchable. You saw them smiling, laughing, parading their false victory. You wept quietly while they celebrated your struggle. They thought your tears were a trophy. They thought your loss was their gain. But life has a longer memory than they expected, and pain has a peculiar way of coming home. Perhaps they buried it for a while. They filled their lives with distractions, with false joys, with loud performances to convince the world and themselves that they escaped untouched. But pain planted a seed, guilt took root, regret began to whisper in the empty hours of the night, and now the same hurt they designed for you rests in their own hearts, uninvited, yet impossible to ignore. They are haunted by the very sorrow they poured upon you, the relationships they broke to isolate you. Their own connections have crumbled, the confidence they tried to shatter in you. Now they wrestle with their own worth, the peace they snatched from your life. It has vanished from theirs like mist evaporating at dawn. What they fail to understand is that pain is not just an external experience. It's a spiritual consequence. You cannot unleash suffering upon another soul and expect your spirit to remain untouched. The human heart is not divided from its deeds. Every action, every word carries a spiritual weight, and eventually the scales must balance. Even now, they may present a mask to the world. They may smile at gatherings, speak boldly in conversations, maintain the illusion of strength, but beneath it, they are restless. Their nights are long. Their peace is fractured. Their mind replays what they did, how they did it, and the unavoidable truth that they cannot escape themselves. This haunting is not revenge, it's reflection. Life forces them to confront what they've become. Every sleepless night is a reminder of the peace they stole from you. Every broken relationship is a reflection of the loyalty they shattered in you. Every moment of regret is the echo of your tears now falling upon their conscience. It is the unavoidable harvest of their own cruelty. You don't need to watch. You don't need to track their downfall. The universe has already appointed the process, and as sure as the sun rises, the same hurt they inflicted returns home, to live beside them, to whisper in the dark, to haunt the corners of their life they thought were safe. You never had to retaliate. God fought for you in silence. Retaliation is a human instinct. When someone hurts you, the desire to strike back rises like wildfire in the chest. To defend your name, your worth, your dignity, it feels righteous, necessary, deserved. But there's a higher wisdom that whispers to those who suffer unjustly. You don't have to fight every battle with your own hands. Sometimes, the most powerful response is restraint, because God fights for those who remain still. You may have wrestled with the urge to expose them, to shout their betrayal from the rooftops, to make the world see what they did behind closed doors. And who could blame you? Silence feels like surrender. Restraint feels like weakness. But in the economy of heaven, silence is often the loudest declaration of trust. When you stepped back, when you chose not to repay hurt with hurt, you handed the battle to God. What they didn't see, what they couldn't understand, is that your silence wasn't fear, it wasn't defeat, it was faith. You weren't shrinking. You were surrendering the outcome to the only one who truly sees, truly judges, and truly restores. God saw you standing in the wreckage of their choices. He saw your private tears, your unanswered prayers, your aching spirit. And while the world whispered that silence meant they had won, heaven was already preparing a different story. You may have looked alone, but you were not abandoned. You may have seemed defenseless, but you were protected by the one who never slumbers. God's justice does not need your help. It does not need your anger. It does not require your retaliation. He works quietly, precisely, methodically. While you remained silent, he moved the pieces. He exposed the hidden things. He allowed their pride to grow just enough to bring about their downfall. He let their own choices become their snare. There's a divine strategy in his timing. He allows the truth to unfold gradually, like dawn breaking across a dark horizon. And when justice arrives, it is undeniable, irreversible, and orchestrated without you ever needing to lift your hand. Your silence became your shield. Your restraint became your declaration of trust. And while they celebrated, thinking your quiet meant weakness, God was fighting in ways you could not see, and he never loses the battles he chooses to fight. Their downfall is not your revenge, it's divine order restoring balance. There is a hidden danger in witnessing the downfall of those who hurt you. The human heart, bruised and aching, often hungers for revenge. It whispers, "See them suffer, that is your justice." But revenge is a shallow satisfaction. It is fleeting, dangerous, and often corrupts the very soul it was meant to heal. What you must understand is this: their collapse, their unraveling, their brokenness is not your revenge. It is divine order restoring balance to what was unjustly tilted. When they hurt you, they disrupted the sacred equilibrium of life. They fractured trust, twisted truth, and poured suffering where there should have been peace. Their actions were not isolated. They sent ripples into the world, and the universe, governed by divine law, began preparing a response. Not because you demanded it, not because you orchestrated it, but because justice, when left to God, always finds its way. It is easy to fall into the temptation of gloating, to look upon their misfortune and whisper, "This is what they deserve." But the moment your heart leans into pride over their pain, you step onto the same ground they once stood, the ground of arrogance, bitterness, and blindness. That is not where you belong. You were never called to be their judge or executioner. You were called to endure, to remain steadfast, and to let the higher court of heaven pass its verdict. Their downfall is not a weapon for your pride. It is evidence that divine laws cannot be mocked. It is proof that what is sown will always be reaped, no matter how carefully hidden. The lies they told, they now suffocate beneath the weight of truth. The relationships they shattered, they now stand alone in the wreckage of their own making. The peace they stole from you, it now eludes them like a shadow slipping beyond their reach. But you must rise above the spectacle of their fall. You must resist the urge to dance in the ruins of their life. Their collapse is not an invitation for your revenge. It is an opportunity for your release. God is showing you that justice is His, that restoration is real, that balance is inevitable. But your heart must remain pure in the process. Look at creation. The oceans do not rage endlessly. The tides return to their rightful place. The sun does not scorch without mercy. It sets, and the cool night follows. Even the most violent storms pass, giving way to stillness. Nature reflects the wisdom of divine balance. And so it is with human affairs. Harm cannot flourish forever. Betrayal cannot reign without consequence. The scales always shift back to equilibrium. They thought they had tilted the scales permanently in their favor. They believed their schemes, their manipulation, their cruelty had given them the upper hand. But divine order is patient. It waits. It allows pride to swell, corruption to fester, and deception to multiply until the fall becomes unavoidable. Their downfall was not random. It was prepared by their own choices, nurtured by their own arrogance, harvested in the soil they themselves poisoned. And when that moment arrives, when their fortress of lies crumbles, when their influence vanishes, when their peace dissolves, remember this: it is not your doing, it is not your revenge, it is the quiet, unstoppable hand of God restoring what was broken, correcting what was twisted, and returning the universe to its rightful balance. You did not have to plot their destruction. You did not have to craft their pain. The divine laws carried the burden for you. And now the evidence stands. The harm they intended for you has become their own undoing. Their suffering is not your victory parade. It is the consequence of choices made in rebellion against truth, against purity, against the unseen laws of God. Let their downfall be a teacher, not a temptation. Let it remind you that vengeance is never yours to hold. Let it release you from bitterness and anchor you in the quiet strength of knowing justice, in God's time, always restores balance. So here you stand now, not broken, not abandoned, but wiser, quieter, stronger. You have seen with your own eyes the unraveling of those who once rejoiced in your suffering. You have watched their steps falter, their peace dissolve, their masks fall away. But more importantly, you have seen the faithfulness of God. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. They did it to hurt you. That is the undeniable truth. Their actions were deliberate, their words sharp, their betrayal calculated, but they underestimated the eternal laws that govern this life. They believed they could harm without consequence. They believed they could rewrite the narrative without ever facing the truth, but they forgot. The author of all stories does not allow injustice to reign forever. And so what they built to destroy you has become their burden. The pain they sent has circled back to their doorstep. The peace they stole has vanished from their own nights. And you remain, not because you fought with your fists, but because you trusted the unseen hand that defends the innocent. Your silence was your strength. Your restraint was your wisdom. Your decision to let God fight for you has preserved your peace, your soul, and your dignity. Let them sit with their choices. Let them carry the weight they crafted for others. Their downfall was never your victory to boast about. It was divine order reminding the world, no act of cruelty goes unseen. No betrayal escapes justice. No weapon formed against the pure-hearted prospers forever. You have walked through the fire, you have endured their schemes, you have carried the wounds in silence, and now God has shown you what they did to hurt you has only hurt themselves. And you are still standing, you are still chosen, and your story is far from over. Lift your head, walk forward, let your life be the loudest evidence that those who plot harm always become entangled in their own cruelty, and those who trust God are always, eventually, vindicated.